Sophia Okoro had everything a 6-year-old in Lagos could dream of. She lived in a white mansion in Ikoyi, behind gates so tall they seemed to touch the sky. She had a bedroom bigger than most people's apartments, filled with doors that had their own tiny designer clothes. Her closet overflowed with shoes she'd never worn, dresses still wrapped in tissue paper, toys that sang in 3 languages. But Sophia was not a happy child. She had secrets. Dark, terrible secrets that lived behind her eyes and whispered to her in the night. She hated the smell of her mother's expensive perfume, that sweet floral scent that everyone else seemed to love, because it reminded her of a different, colder scent. The bleach and antiseptic of a hospital hallway. The sharp chemical sting that meant death was near. She hated the softness of her silk bedsheet because her back still truly remembered the feel of a thin, lumpy mat on a concrete floor. The kind of floor that was always cold, no matter how hot Lagos got. The kind of floor that left bruises on your hips when you slept. She would wake up screaming sometimes, her small hands clutching at her throat, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Her nanny would rush in, confused and worried, but Sophia could never explain. How could she tell anyone that she was drowning in memories that weren't supposed to belong to a child? Her father, Charles Okoro, was a real estate billionaire who built half of the new towers in Victoria Island. His face was on billboards, his name in the newspapers. People bowed when he walked past. Her mother, Amara, was a socialite who collected designer bags the way some people collected stamps. She had a different one for every day of the month, sometimes 2. Amara would laugh off Sophia's imagination as the quirk of a clever child. She'd pat Sophia's head with her perfectly manicured fingers and say, "Darling, stop telling people you used to be a cleaner. It's not funny. People would think we're raising you poorly." But Sophia knew. She remembered a different name, a name that tasted like tears and dust. Miriam. The memories were clearest at night, when the house was quiet and the generator hummed its low mechanical lullaby. They came in waves, a storm of humiliation that made her small body shake under those expensive silk sheets. She remembered hunger, the kind that made your stomach fold in on itself, that made you dizzy when you stood up too fast. She remembered torn shoes, the embarrassment of walking with your toes peeking out, the hot pavement burning your feet. She remembered a powerful Lekki couple, Jessica and David Coe, and the sound of their laughter. That high, cruel laughter that said you were nothing, that you would always be nothing. Sometimes the memories were just whispers, fragments of a life that felt more real than her own. Other times they were vivid, so clear she could smell the fierce sweat on her skin, feel the ache in her knees from scrubbing floors for hours. Until the day of her 6-year checkup, they had just been dreams. Terrible, recurring nightmares that followed her from sleep into waking. But that day, everything changed. They went to St. Luke's Private Hospital, the most expensive hospital in Lagos, the same one her father had just donated a new wing to. There was a plaque with his name on it in the lobby, shiny and gold. The building was massive, all glass and marble, with a fountain in the courtyard that cost more than most people made in a year. Sophia walked on the gleaming marble floors, her hand in her mother's hand. Her mother was busy on a call, her voice sharp and businesslike, talking about some charity gala. The click of her heels echoed through the pristine hallway. She slipped her hand free and wandered toward the nurse's station, drawn by something she couldn't name, a pull, like gravity. A nurse with kind eyes and streaks of grey in her hair looked up from her computer screen. Her name tag read Funke. She smiled, the kind of smile that reached her eyes, rare in a place like this. "Hello, small madam. Are you lost?" Sophia stared at her face. The memory hit her like a physical blow, like someone had reached into her chest and squeezed her heart. Her vision blurred, sounds became distant and muffled. She saw this woman's face, younger, tears streaming down her cheeks, holding a blanket, trying to move forward but frozen in fear. "You," she whispered, her voice tiny and trembling. "You were there.
You were there when I died. The words came out before Sophia could stop them, before she even fully understood what she was saying. In the hallway, right there. She pointed to a spot near the elevator, a perfectly ordinary spot that suddenly felt charged with terrible meaning. You wanted to give me a blanket, but the matron stopped you. Nurse Funke's clipboard clattered to the floor. The sound was sharp, final, like a gunshot in the quiet hospital. Her face went pale, the color draining away until she looked like she might faint. Amara Okoro, finished with her call, rushed over. Sophia, what did you say? Stop this nonsense right now. She grabbed Sophia's arm, her fingers tight enough to hurt. I'm so sorry, she said to the nurse, her voice dripping with embarrassed apology. She has such an active imagination. Too many movies, I think. But it wasn't nonsense. It wasn't imagination or too many movies. It was a memory, as real as the floor beneath her feet, as real as the air in her lungs. And in that antiseptic-smelling hallway, the nurse's shocked face before her, and her mother's angry grip on her arm, the full story of Miriam's life and her death came flooding back. Not in fragments anymore, but in a terrible, complete narrative. Every moment, every humiliation, every prayer that went unanswered. Until now. It started with the shoes. The Lekki mansion of Jessica and David Cole was all white marble and glass, the kind of house that appeared in magazines with titles like Nigeria's Most Luxurious Homes and Living Like Royalty in Lagos. Every surface gleamed, every corner was perfect. It was Miriam's job to make sure you couldn't see a single speck of dust on any of it. Not a fingerprint on the glass, not a smudge on the marble.
It was back-breaking work for one person, but Jessica didn't care. She liked having someone to boss around, someone to make feel small. It was 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, the kind of humid Lagos morning where the air felt thick enough to drink. Mariam was on her hands and knees, scrubbing the grout in the kitchen entryway with a toothbrush because Jessica said the mop wasn't thorough enough. Her back ached. Her knees were raw, but she didn't complain. She needed this job. She needed the money. The head driver, Usman, was outside polishing the black G-Wagon, the third car in a collection of 5. The new house girl, Choma, was nervously arranging fruit in a bowl, her hands shaking slightly. She'd only been there a week and was already terrified of Jessica. Jessica Cole came down the stairs, her heels clicking like gunshots on the marble. Each step was deliberate, commanding. She held her new iPhone, the latest model that wasn't even officially released in Nigeria yet. Her nails were a perfect blood red, freshly done at the salon yesterday. She was wearing a silk robe that probably cost more than Mariam made in 3 months. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs. She stared at Mariam's feet.
Her expression shifted from neutral to something darker, something hungry. She'd found her entertainment for the morning. Chioma, come here, Jessica said, her voice dripping with amusement. Chioma scurried over, abandoning the fruit bowl. She knew that tone. It meant someone was about to suffer. Look at this, Jessica pointed with one perfect nail, the gesture both delicate and damning. Miriam's slippers were an old faded blue, the kind you could buy at any market for 200 naira, and these had been bought years ago. The rubber on the right sole had split completely, creating a flapping sound when she walked. She'd used a safety pin to hold the strap together on the left one, the metal glinting dully in the morning light. Miriam, Jessica said, and the whole kitchen went silent. Even the sound of Usman's polishing cloth outside seemed to stop. Are these shoes? Chioma giggled nervously, a high-pitched sound that she immediately tried to stifle. Usman looked away, suddenly very interested in a spot on the car's hood. Madam, Miriam's voice was barely a whisper. "Are you not ashamed?" Jessica asked, her voice rising now, loud enough for everyone to hear, loud enough to carry through the entire compound. "Bringing this kind of poverty into my house, on my Italian marble. Do you know how much this floor costs per square meter?" She looked at Chioma, drawing her into the cruelty, making her complicit. "This is what happens when you let these people in. No class, no dignity, no self-respect whatsoever." Miriam's face burned hot, the shame spreading through her chest like fire. Her chest felt tight, like the air after a harmattan dust storm, thick and suffocating. "Sorry, madame." "Don't sorry, madame me," Jessica snapped, taking a step closer. Her perfume was overpowering, expensive and choking. "Go and throw them in the bin, right now. You will walk barefoot today. I don't want your bad luck, poverty energy to stain my floors any more than it has already has." She tilted her head, a predator playing with its prey. "Is it not your mates that are wearing heels, getting pedicures, looking presentable? Get up." Miriam nodded. Her throat closed tight. She couldn't speak. She picked up the broken slippers, those pathetic scraps of rubber that had been her only shoes, and walked to the bin outside. Each step on the cold marble was a reminder of her situation. Each step was humiliation. Later, after Jessica had left for her spa appointment, Chioma whispered, "Madame is wicked, very wicked." Usman just shook his head, looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. Speaking up meant losing your job. In Lagos, in this economy, that was a death sentence. That evening, Miriam walked barefoot to the Lekki bus stop, nearly 2 kilometers away. The hot pavement blistered her feet, each step agony. The sharp stones cut into her soles, drawing blood that she couldn't afford to treat. The generator noise from the mansion, that constant, rumbling reminder of wealth and power, drowned out her silent cry.
Another piece of her dignity was gone, stripped away like the sole from her shoe. It was lunchtime on a Friday. Jessica was hosting two of her friends, Mrs. Adebayo and Mrs. Silva, both wives of powerful men, both wearing more jewelry than Miriam would see in a lifetime. Their designer bags sat on the dining table like polished idols, monuments to excess. Gucci, Chanel, Hermes, bags that cost hundreds of thousands of naira, just sitting there, casually, as if they were nothing. Miriam had been working for 6 hours straight. She'd cleaned 3 bathrooms, mopped all the floors, done 2 loads of laundry, and organized Jessica's shoe closet. Her stomach grumbled loudly, painfully. She hadn't eaten since a small piece of bread the night before, stale bread that Chioma had snuck her. She'd saved half for this morning, but it was long gone. She finished cleaning the guest toilet, making sure every surface sparkled, and quietly went to the kitchen. Her hands were shaking from low blood sugar. Chioma was there, eating a small plate of rice. "Chioma, please," Miriam whispered, her voice hoarse. "Is there any staff food left? Anything?" Chioma looked terrified, glancing toward the dining room. "Miriam, must you eat now?" Jessica was standing in the doorway, her arms crossed. Her friends were behind her, looking bored and vaguely annoyed at the interruption. Mrs. Adebayo was filing her nails. Mrs. Silva was scrolling on her phone, not even looking up. "This is what I deal with, you see," Jessica announced to her friends, her voice theatrical, performative. "Always hungry, always needing something, never satisfied." Mrs. Adebayo raised a plucked eyebrow. Mrs. Silva finally looked up, but only for a second, already losing interest. "Madame, Miriam tried to explain, but her voice was too weak, too ashamed. "Can't you just wait?" Jessica sighed dramatically, as if Miriam was the most unreasonable person in the world. "You people have no self-control. You just ate. When did you eat? This morning?" "Yesterday, madame," Miriam said softly, her eyes on the ground. "Nonsense. Lies. You're disturbing my guests with your drama. Go and drink water from the tap and finish the outside windows. All of them. And they better be spotless, no streaks." Miriam's stomach cramped violently, a sharp pain that made her gasp. "Yes, madame." She backed away, her head bowed in submission. "God, when will this end?" she thought, the prayer desperate and silent. "When will you see me?" The friends tittered as Jessica led them back to the dining room, their laughter light and unconcerned. David, my husband, says I'm just too kind to them, that I'm too soft. Can you imagine? Miriam went outside into the scorching afternoon heat. She drank water from the tap by the generator, the water warm and slightly metallic. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold them steady. She checked her cracked phone screen, the one she'd bought used for 3,000 naira. 1,200 naira in her account. 1,200 naira. Not enough for anything. Not enough for food. Not enough for new shoes. Not enough for anything but survival for maybe 2 more days. She watched them through the window, eating jollof rice and chicken. So much chicken. Golden and glistening. Laughing. Drinking wine from crystal glasses. Living. While she was dying, piece by piece, day by day. The sickness came in her 3rd month of pregnancy. It was sudden and violent, hitting her like a truck. She was in Jessica's master bathroom, cleaning the blast shower with special imported cleaner that Jessica insisted on. The fumes were strong, chemical, and sharp. The smell of the cleaning products mixed with the lingering scent of Jessica's expensive bath oils made her head spin violently. She stumbled out, her hand over her mouth, vision blurring at the edges, and was sick in the hallway. It came up in violent heaves, her whole body convulsing. She couldn't control it, she couldn't stop it. Jessica came out of her dressing room, wrapped in a towel, her face a mask of fury. Her hair was wet, dripping onto her shoulders. Are you all mad? You are vomiting in my hallway? In my house? Madam, sorry, I'm not feeling well. Miriam was on her knees, wiping at the mess with her bare hands, tears streaming down her face. You're not feeling well? Or you're pregnant? Jessica's eyes were sharp, missing nothing. She'd suspected for a while, had noticed the slight swell of Miriam's stomach, the way she moved more carefully now. Miriam froze. There was no point in lying. I think I'm pregnant, madam. Jessica's face hardened into something cold and cruel. Pregnant? For who? You're not even married properly. What kind of disgrace is this? Madam, my husband, Miriam's husband was a bus driver, a conductor actually, barely making enough to survive. They'd done a small traditional ceremony, nothing official, nothing Jessica would recognize as real. I don't care, Jessica cut her off, her voice sharp as a blade. You planned this, didn't you? To get money from me? To get maternity leave? To become my problem? No, madam, I swear, I didn't. Miriam was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I am not paying for this. This is your problem. Don't bring your village wahala here. Your village poverty, your village problems. Jessica pointed to the mess on her expensive hardwood floor. Clean it up, now, and then you will finish the windows, all of them, and the garage. And if you're strong enough to get pregnant, you're strong enough to walk. In fact, you work harder. I'm not running a charity. Yes, madam. Miriam got the bucket and cloth with shaking hands. Tears of humiliation burned her eyes, blurred her vision. She cleaned her own sickness from the floor as Jessica watched, arms crossed, enjoying the power. Her body was weak, trembling with effort, but her spirit felt weaker, crushed. How will I do this? How will I survive this? That night, her husband, the bus conductor, didn't come home. His phone was switched off. She tried calling 17 times. Nothing. She was truly alone, with a baby growing inside her and nowhere to turn. Miriam was 8 months pregnant now. Her feet were swollen, grotesquely so, barely fitting into the cheap flat shoes she'd managed to buy. Her back ached constantly, a deep grinding pain that never stopped. But she was still working. She couldn't afford not to. Jessica had made it clear, no work meant no pay, pregnant or not. Jessica was hosting a small party for her husband's promotion. David had just been made partner at his firm. 10 or 15 people, all in expensive clothes, designer labels visible from across the room, drinking champagne that cost more per bottle than Miriam made in a month. Miriam was visibly pregnant and exhausted, was serving small chops on a silver tray. Her hands shook slightly, making the glasses clink. Each step was agony. She wanted to sit down so bad her legs trembled.
A kind-looking older guest, Mrs. Okigbo, a woman with soft eyes and gray hair, stopped her. She touched Miriam's arm gently. My dear, you should be resting. Look at you. Jessica, this your girl is heavily pregnant. Why is she walking like this? Jessica, in a bright red dress that clung to her figure, laughed. It was a high-pitched, fake sound that echoed through the room. Everyone turned to look. Resting? Auntie, please. She pulled Miriam into the center of the circle, displaying her like a circus animal. Tell them, Miriam, are you not strong? Miriam was frozen, all eyes on her. 15 pairs of eyes, some amused, some uncomfortable, all staring. She couldn't speak. Her throat was closed. She actually asked me for maternity leave, she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. The guests laughed, some uncomfortably, some cruelly. A leave for what? Is pregnancy a sickness? My own mother gave birth in the village and went to the farm the same day. These modern girls are just too soft. The laughter hurt more than any physical pain. It cut deeper than any insult. It was the laughter of people who would never understand, who would never have to understand. David Cole, her husband, sipped his drink and looked annoyed, not at his wife for her cruelty, but at Miriam for causing a scene, for making his party awkward. Go and get more ice, she said, her voice dropping to that dangerous, quiet tone that meant real anger. And stop looking so pitiful. You're ruining the party. You're bringing down the mood. Yes, madam. Miriam waddled back to the kitchen, her hand on her belly, trying to soothe the baby who was kicking, agitated by her stress. She hid in the pantry, for a moment, just a moment to breathe, her body shaking.
A sharp pain shot through her back, radiating round to her belly. A contraction, a real one. She bit her lip hard enough to draw blood, stifling a cry. Not yet. Please, God, not yet. Not here. But God, it seemed, wasn't listening. Sunday service, a big Pentecostal church in Lekki, one of those mega churches with a congregation of thousands. The music was loud, the band professional, the AC was cold enough to make you forget you were in Lagos. The building was impressive, all glass and steel, with projection screens and perfect acoustics. Miriam was in the back row. She spent her last money on the offering, 500 naira that she desperately needed for food. But the pastor had said to sow a seed, that God would bless her, and she needed a blessing so badly. She was praying for a miracle, for help, for anything. Jessica Cole was in the front row, on the First Lady's aisle, reserved for senior wives and wealthy donors. The women who gave millions in offerings, who sponsored church programs, whose names were on plaques. She was glowing, radiant in her expensive white wrapper and matching gele. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like success incarnate. It was testimony time. Jessica walked up to the microphone with perfect posture, her heels clicking on the stage. She smiled that megawatt smile that made her so popular on Instagram. Praise the Lord! She beamed into the microphone. Hallelujah! The church replied, thousands of voices in unison. I just want to thank God for His blessings. Her voice was full of emotion, practiced and perfect. My husband just closed a new deal worth 50 million naira. Amen. My children are top of their class at GIS, the best school in Lagos. Amen. Then her eyes scanned the crowd and found Miriam in the back. Her smile tightened, became something sharper, more dangerous. And I want to thank God for patience. The church was quiet, sensing something. You know, the Bible says the poor you will always have with you. And it is so true. It is so hard managing some people. So hard. She didn't use Miriam's name. She didn't have to. Everyone who knew them knew exactly who she was talking about. They bring their problems into your life, their sickness, their bad luck, their village mentality into your home. But God has given me the grace to endure, the grace to be kind, even when it's hard. She looked straight at Miriam, their eyes locking across the massive sanctuary. Some people just need to pray harder, need to stop being lazy, need to stop expecting handouts and work for what they want. Laziness is
is not a blessing. Poverty is not a blessing. It's a choice. God bless you, Sister Jessica, the pastor said, nodding vigorously, caught up in her testimony. That's wisdom right there. You're blessed because you work hard. Miriam shrank in her seat, wanting to disappear, to sink through the floor. The usher next to her looked at her with pity. They looked away quickly, afraid to be associated with her. Her chest felt like it was filled with stones, crushing her lungs. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She got up and left before the service ended, stumbling through the crowd. People stared. People whispered. She couldn't afford the keke back. It was 2,000 naira, money she didn't have. So she started the long walk home, 4 kilometers in the scorching sun. Her contractions were now 30 minutes apart. Real labor. Undeniable. The gospel music from the church, that joyful, victorious music, seemed to mock her with every painful step. The estate gate, 8 p.m. The sun had set, but the heat hadn't broken. Miriam's water broke. It gushed down her legs in a warm rush, staining the dusty pavement, pulling around her feet. She was still in her church clothes, her best wrapper, now ruined. She was in agony, pain like nothing she ever imagined. She grabbed the metal bars of the gate, her knuckles white, her whole body trembling. Adamu! She screamed for the gateman. Please, come, madam! The baby is coming! The baby is coming now! Adamu, the gateman, was terrified. He'd never seen anything like this. He called Jessica on the intercom with shaking hands.
Jessica's voice, cold and electronic, boomed over the speaker. What? Now? At my gate? Is she mad? Is this woman insane? She came to the gate in a silk robe, her hair wrapped, her face cream still visible on her skin. Her husband, David, was behind her in pajama pants and a t-shirt, looking annoyed at being disturbed. She saw the mess on the pavement. She saw Miriam, bent double, screaming. She saw the water, the blood starting to show. Miriam, you are disgusting, Jessica shrieked, her voice high and furious. You are doing this here, in front of my house, to embarrass me? What would the neighbors think? Madam, please, the hospital. Miriam could barely speak through the pain. Don't let her in, Jessica told the guards, 2 large men who looked uncomfortable but obedient. She will stain my floors, my compound. David, this is not our problem. We didn't get her pregnant. David Cole scoffed, actually laughed. Call your family, he said to Miriam, as if it was the simplest thing in the world. I have nobody. Please, sir, please. Miriam was crying now, tears mixing with sweat. Security, get her away from the gate. She's bringing shame to this estate. She's bringing rats and disease. A neighbor's car, a black Lexus SUV with tinted windows, slowed down. The woman inside, Mrs. Bampole, wound down her window slightly. Jessica, what's wrong? Is everything okay? Is she okay? She's fine, Auntie, Jessica called, her voice suddenly sweet and concerned. Just being dramatic. You know how these people are. Go on, don't block the road. The Lexus drove on. Mrs. Bankole glanced in her rearview mirror once, then looked away. Not her problem, not her business. Jessica and David went back inside. The gate closed with a solid final clang. The air conditioner in their house hummed, a sound of comfort and safety that Miriam would never know. Clean this mess up, Jessica's voice came over the intercom again, disembodied and cruel. And don't let her in my compound. If she dies here, we'll sue her family. Miriam was left on the pavement, outside the gate, crumpled in a pool of her own fluids. Her screams echoed through the quiet estate, ignored by everyone. The estate's CCTV camera mounted on the gate recorded everything. Its small red light blinked steadily, a single unblinking eye. A witness that wouldn't forget. A kind keke driver, an older man with a weathered face, had been passing by. He saw her state and stopped immediately, his face full of horror and compassion. Ah, sister, come. He jumped out, helping her into his vehicle. He drove her to St. Luke's private hospital, running red lights, his hand on the horn. He refused her money when she weakly tried to offer. God help you, sister. God help you. His voice was thick with emotion. She stumbled into the reception. It was bright, fluorescent bright, clean, and smelled of money and privilege. Everything was white and chrome and glass.
She was bleeding now, really bleeding. She was crying, her whole body shaking with pain and fear. Please, my baby, it's coming right now. The receptionist, Nurse Becky, a young woman with perfect makeup and a cold expression, looked at her torn, dirty and wet clothes with undisguised disgust. She actually wrinkled her nose. Do you have a registration? Have you paid your deposit? We require 50,000 naira deposit for maternity cases. No, I don't. But I work for Mr. and Mrs. Cole, Jessica and David Cole. They know me. They will pay. Please. Nurse Becky scoffed, actually laughed. The Coles? We know them very well. They are big donors here. Let me call them right now. She put Jessica on speakerphone, not even bothering to be discreet. Hello, Mrs. Cole? Yes, it's St. Luke's Hospital. We have someone here claiming to work for you, Miriam something. She's here and she's making quite a mess in our lobby. Jessica's voice was cold, sharp, final. I told you people already. She is not my responsibility. We are not paying for anything. In fact, she stole from me. She took my gold watch. Don't let her leave. I'm calling the police right now. She hung up without another word.
You heard her, Nurse Becky said, her voice almost triumphant. We can't admit you without payment. And now there's a theft allegation. Security. But I'm giving birth. Miriam screamed, her voice breaking. The baby was crowning. She could feel it. The pressure was unbearable. The matron, a large, stern woman with a hard face and harder eyes, came out from her office. What is this noise? What is all this disturbance? Get her out of here. This is a private hospital, not a general hospital. She's scaring the patients. Look at her. This is unacceptable. Security guards, two large men in creased uniforms, grabbed her arms roughly. But it was too late. Biology didn't care about money or status or deposits. Miriam collapsed in the hallway, right there between the reception and the elevator, on the cold, polished marble floor that someone had probably cleaned just hours before. And right there, with no doctor, no nurse, no help, she gave birth to a small, silent baby boy. The entire reception lobby, 15, maybe 20 wealthy people waiting for their appointments, was watching, frozen, horrified, disgusted. Phones came out, not to call for help, to record. Video after video, flash after flash. Oh my God, this is horrible. Why is nobody helping her? This is St. Luke's, the expensive one. I'm posting this on Twitter right now. This is absolutely barbaric. The nurses were whispering among themselves, looking at the matron, looking at each other, afraid to move. The Coles are wicked, very wicked. But what can we do? They are donors. This is wrong. This is so wrong. A young nurse, Funke, the one with kind eyes, tried to step forward with a blanket, just to cover her, just to give her some dignity. The matron shot her a look that could kill, a look that said, your job or her comfort, choose. Nurse Funke stopped, her hands trembling, tears streaming down her face, the blanket clutched uselessly in her hands. The baby didn't cry. He was blue-tinged, struggling, his tiny chest barely moving. Finally, seeing the PR disaster unfolding, seeing the phones recording everything, seeing the wealthy clients backing away in horror, the matron backed. Fine, get a gunny. Take her to the emergency ward. But she's not leaving until someone pays. Do you understand? Not leaving. They moved her roughly, without gentleness, like she was cargo, not a human being. The CCTV in the hallway, high definition and cloud backed up, captured every single second, every moment of her humiliation, every second of her suffering. They put her in a cold, bare room in the basement. It wasn't a real room. It was a storage area that they sometimes used for overflow, for people who couldn't pay. No windows, bare concrete walls, a single fluorescent light that flickered. It was 24 hours later. Miriam was weak, so weak she could barely lift her head. The baby was in a cheap plastic hospital cot next to the bed. He was still silent. His breathing was shallow, wrong. Miriam used her last 100 naira of airtime, the very last money she had, to call Jessica. A final, desperate plea, a last hope.
Jessica picked up on the third ring. You have some nerve calling me. Some nerve. I have told the hospital you stole my gold watch, my diamond earrings too. You will pay that bill, every kobo of it, and then you will go to jail. Do you understand me? Madam, please. Miriam's voice was a croak, barely audible. Please, I'm begging you. My baby, he's not breathing well. He's sick. He needs help. Please. There was a pause, a long pause. Then Jessica laughed, actually laughed. That's your problem, not mine. Did I tell you to get pregnant? Did I? Please, madam, don't do this, please. Miriam was sobbing, her whole body shaking. Listen to me, and listen well, Jessica said, her voice dropping to a whisper, intimate and cruel. The poor die every day, every single day. You are not special. Your baby is not special. You chose this life.
Miriam stared at her cracked phone. On WhatsApp, her last message, "Please, madam, he's your namesake. I named him David," showed 2 blue ticks. Read, seen, ignored. A different nurse came in, an older woman with tired eyes and rough hands. She checked the silent baby without speaking. Her face was blank, professional, carefully neutral. She checked Miriam's vitals, her movements efficient but cold. "Your BP is, oh my God, you're bleeding internally." Her voice finally broke, showing real concern. "How long have you been like this?" "My baby," she whispered, her lips barely moving. "Is he, please tell me, is he?" The nurse looked away, unable to meet her eyes. "He's gone. He didn't make it. I'm so sorry. He never had a chance." Miriam didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't have the strength left. She just broke. Something inside her, something fundamental, shattered into pieces that could never be put back together. The nurse covered the baby's face with a thin white cloth. The gesture was final, absolute. "I need to get the doctor," the nurse said, her voice distant now. "You're in serious condition. Just hold on." But Miriam knew. She could feel it. The coldness spreading through her limbs, the darkness creeping in at the edges of her vision. Death was coming, and honestly, she welcomed it. She was alone, in the dark, in the basement of a hospital that wouldn't save her, with her dead baby beside her. Her body was failing. She knew she was dying, could feel it in every labored breath, every slowing heartbeat. She was flat on her back, the cheap shades scratching against her skin. She could feel the blood, warm and sticky, pooling beneath her, soaking through the thin mattress. The smell of it, metallic and sharp, filled her nose. "God," she whispered. Her voice was just air now, barely sound. "Jehovah." "You saw it." The words came out broken, interrupted by gasping breaths. "You saw everything. You saw the shoes. You saw the hunger. They saw them laugh at me. They mocked me in your church. They recorded me in the hallway. They watched me suffer. They stood there and filmed me like I was entertainment." Her hand, still holding the cracked, dead phone, trembled violently. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor, the screen cracking further. My baby is gone. My innocent boy. He never even cried, never made a sound, never had a chance. God, I didn't deserve this. I worked hard. I was kind. I was a good person." A single tear rolled down her temple into her hair, disappearing into the thin, sweat-soaked pillow. "I'm leaving it in your hands. I can't fight anymore. I have nothing left. Nothing." Don't let them win. Please, let the truth, let it come out somehow, someday. "I'm so tired, God, so tired of hurting, so tired of being invisible, so tired of being nothing." Her breathing became shallower, more labored. Each breath was a battle she was losing. If there's another life,
If there's justice somewhere, please, please, let me see it. Let me know it exists. Her hand fell open, limp against the stained sheets. The heart monitor, which had been beeping weakly, irregularly, began to slow. Beep, beep, beep. And then a long, continuous tone, flat line. Miriam Okafor, 24 years old, died alone in a hospital basement while the woman who killed her slept peacefully in silk sheets. And then, in a way that science couldn't explain, in a way that defied every law of nature, she was born again.
When she opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was not a cracked water-stained ceiling or fluorescent lights that hurt your eyes. It was a mobile or spilling crystal swans, catching the light from a vast clean window. Sunlight streamed through expensive curtains, creating rainbows on white walls. The ceiling was painted with clouds, a mural that had cost more than Miriam's entire life earnings. Her name was Sophia Okoro. She was 6 years old. She was a billionaire's daughter. She had everything anyone could want. And she remembered everything. For years, she thought they were just nightmares, terrible, recurring dreams that made her wake up screaming. Her parents took her to therapists, expensive ones in Ikoyi with offices that smelled like lavender. The therapist called it an overactive imagination and prescribed play therapy. But after touching the hand of Nurse Funke, after seeing that says that existed in both her present and her past, the dam broke. Every memory came flooding back in perfect, terrible clarity. Nurse Funke was shaking, pulling Sophia into an empty supply closet. Her hands were trembling so badly she could barely turn the door handle. The small room smelled of antiseptic and fear. "Child, who are you? How did you know that? About the blanket? Nobody knows about that. Nobody." "Her name was Miriam," Sophia said, her voice no longer small or childlike. There was something ancient in her eyes, something that made Nurse Funke take a step back. "Miriam Okafor, and Jessica Cole let her die, right here, in this hospital. You were there." Nurse Funke burst into tears, her whole body shaking with the sob she'd been holding in for 6 years. "I was that nurse. I tried to help. I swear I tried. I had the blanket. I was going to cover her, give her some dignity. But Matron said the Coles would destroy me, would destroy all of us. She said we'd all lose our jobs." "What happened after?" Sophia asked, her small hands gripping Nurse Funke's arms. "Tell me everything." "They buried it," Funke said, her voice breaking. "The Coles are too powerful. They have connections everywhere. They paid the hospital. They paid the police. The commissioner of police himself came to the hospital." She wiped her face with shaking hands. "They said Miriam had stolen from them, that she died of an infection she brought from her village, that it wasn't their fault, that she was mentally unstable. They fired me a week later," Funke continued, her voice bitter now, "for emotional instability and unprofessional conduct, because I filed a complaint with the medical board. I tried to tell the truth. I really tried." "They deleted the records," Funke cried, fresh tears streaming down her face. "They deleted her admission, her death certificate, everything. It's like she never existed, like she never mattered." "No," Sophia said, and there was steel in her voice that didn't belong to a 6-year-old child. "They didn't delete everything." Sophia's new life was her divine intervention. Her privilege was her weapon. Every advantage that Miriam had been denied was now at her disposal. The money, the name, the connections, the power, all of it. She didn't tell her parents, not yet. They would think she was crazy. They would send her to more therapists, maybe even a psychiatric hospital. She needed to be patient. She needed to wait. She was a quiet, watchful child. While other children her age were playing with dolls and watching cartoons, Sophia was learning. She learned to use her old laptop before she learned to ride a bike. She taught herself to code by watching YouTube videos. She became fluent in navigating systems, finding backdoors, understanding how digital information worked. She was a ghost in their systems, invisible and patient. The years passed. She grew from a strained 6-year-old into a focused teenager. While her classmates worried about boys and makeup and parties, Sophia was building something, planning something. The tech assistant the stories would later mention was a boy she met in a coding club when she was 14. His name was Femi. He was a genius from Surulere, brilliant with computers but poor, desperately poor. He'd been about to be expelled from their exclusive private school for hacking the grading system. Not to change his grades, they were already perfect, but to prove he could. For the challenge. Sophia, now a powerful, wealthy teenager with her father's ear, stepped in. She didn't just protect him, she had her father sponsor him fully. Tuition, housing, everything. She bought his loyalty with kindness, something no one had ever shown him. Femi was loyal, fanatically loyal. She'd saved his life, his future. He would do anything for her. Femi, she said one day when she was 16, they were in her bedroom, a space larger than most apartments, filled with top-of-the-line computers and technology. I have a job for you, a real one. Anything, Sophia. He meant it. She could see it in his eyes. I need to access the St. Luke's Hospital archives from 10 years ago, 2009. His eyes widened. That's old, Soph, and illegal, very illegal. If we get caught. I know, she said, meeting his gaze steadily. But it's important, more important than you can imagine. What are we looking for? She took a deep breath. Her name was Miriam Okafor. She was a housemaid. She died giving birth in their hallway. They killed her. They let her die. And then they erased her. Femi stared at his friend, at the intensity in her eyes, the pain. How do you know this? Because, Sophia said quietly, I was her in another life. I know how that sounds. I know you probably think I'm crazy, but I need this, Femi. I need to finish what she started. There was a long silence. Then Femi nodded. Okay, I'm in. If you're crazy, then we're both crazy. Femi worked for weeks, then months. The hospital's new system was tough, modern, with actual security. But the old server, the archive server, they'd relegated to a dusty server room and forgotten about. The old server was sloppy, outdated security protocols, passwords that hadn't been changed in years. Sophia's phone buzzed one night at 2 a.m. A message from Femi, just 3 words that made her heart race. I'm in. She sat up in bed, her hands shaking. This was it. After 10 years, after a lifetime, this was it. They buried it deep, but I found the archive, old backup tapes, everything. A minute later, her phone buzzed again. File transfers, large ones, making her phone hot. st_looks_hallway_October_2009.mp4. Another file appeared. Miriam Okafor _medical_records_confidential.pdf. Miriam Okafor _bill_unpaid_final.pdf. And a third, a .wav file. Femi had hacked the old security phone log, the backup system that no one even remembered existed. Soph, you need to hear this. Is the call from Jessica Cole to the reception desk to Nurse Becky. They saved all the calls for quality assurance. They forgot to delete this one. Sophia sat up in her million-naira bedroom, surrounded by luxury that Miriam had never known, would never know. She put on her expensive noise-canceling headphones. She pressed play. She heard her own death, heard it with perfect clarity, every word preserved by technology that had been meant to protect the hospital, not condemn it. She heard Miriam begging, heard the pain in her voice, the desperation, heard Nurse Becky's cold indifference, her disgust. And then she heard Jessica Cole's voice clear as a bell, preserved perfectly by digital recording. I told you people already, she is not my responsibility. A pause. Then, in fact, she stole from me. Don't let her leave. I'm calling the police. And later, on a different call, that final damning conversation. That's your problem, not mine.
And then, the words that would destroy Jessica Cole's life.
Listen to me, and listen well. The poor die every day, every single day. You are not special. Sophia closed her laptop. The tears that came were not for Miriam. She had cried all those tears already in another lifetime. These tears were different. These were tears of vindication, of justice finally coming. She opened her father's e-calendar on the family's shared system. She'd known about this event for months, had been waiting for it. In 2 days, Okoroko Partnership Gala, Echo Hotel Grand Ballroom, 300 guests, international investors present, live stream. Perfect, absolutely perfect. Tomorrow, Sophia whispered to the empty room, to the ghost of Miriam that lived inside her. Tomorrow the whole world knows your name. Tomorrow they pay for what they did. She opened a new file on her computer, began typing, planning. Every detail had to be perfect. The timing, the presentation, the reveal. She had one shot at this, one chance to make them feel what Miriam felt. Humiliation, public disgrace, the destruction of everything they valued. She walked through the night, her fingers flying across the keyboard. By morning, everything was ready. The files were prepared. The presentation was loaded. Femi had the access codes to the hotel's AV system. It was time. The Echo Hotel and Suites Grand Ballroom was a monument to excess. Crystal chandeliers the size of cars hung from the ceiling. The marble floors were polished to a mirror shine. Everything gleamed with wealth and power. The room was a sea of Lagos high society. 300 of the richest, most powerful people in Nigeria. Bankers in designer suits, politicians with their mistresses disguised as assistants, oil magnates who controlled billions, society wives dripping in jewelry that could feed a village for a year. Massive projector screens flanked the stage, each one the size of a small cinema screen. A live stream was running for international investors in London, New York, Dubai. Everyone was taking selfies, posting on Instagram. The flashbulbs like stars. Hashtags were already trending. Hashtag Okoroko deal. Hashtag Lagos luxury. Hashtag power couples. Jessica Cole was the star of the evening. 16 years older than the woman who had killed Miriam, but richer, more powerful, more arrogant than ever. She was wearing a custom-made Larry da Silva gown that shimmered like oil on water, covered in hand-sewn crystals. It had cost 2 million naira. Her jewelry alone was worth more than most people's houses. Her husband David was by her side, greeting Charles Okoro with the fake warmth of business partners. They shook hands for the cameras, smiled for the photographers. Jessica was on her phone, of course, updating her massive Instagram following. She posted a boomerang of her clinking champagne glasses with Amara Okoro. Caption: blessed beyond measure. Thank God. When you work hard, you win. Hashtag Okoroko deal. Hashtag Lagos luxury. Hashtag blessed and bougie. Hashtag God's princess. The post got 1,000 likes in 3 minutes. Sophia Okoro arrived quietly, without fanfare. She was 16 years old now, tall and elegant in a simple white dress that cost a fraction of what Jessica was wearing, but looked infinitely more sophisticated. She looked like an angel, pure and untouchable. Her father Charles beamed when he saw her. My daughter, my princess, come, meet everyone. Jessica air kissed her, the gesture, practiced and false. Sophia, darling, so beautiful, a true princess, just like your mother. She smelt of expensive perfume, the same brand she'd worn years ago. The scent made Sophia's stomach turn. Sophia smiled and it didn't reach her eyes. Auntie Jessica, you look unforgettable, truly unforgettable. Oh, thank you, darling, you are so sweet. Sophia didn't sit at the main table where her parents expected her. She excused herself saying she needed the restroom and went to the back of the ballroom to the tech booth, hidden behind a black curtain, where Femi was disguised as a hotel technician. He wore a uniform he'd borrowed from a friend, a real technician he'd paid off. No one looked twice at service workers. They were invisible. It's loaded, Femi whispered, his hands on the mixing board, his fingers trembling slightly. But Soph, are you sure? Once we do this, we can't take it back. Play it, Sophia said, her voice steady, cold, setting. Femi looked at his friend one more time, saw the absolute conviction in her eyes, and nodded. For Miriam, he whispered. For Miriam, Sophia agreed. Charles Okoro was at the podium now, tapping the microphone. The crowd quieted, champagne glasses poised, phones ready to record. Thank you all for coming, friends, partners, family. His voice boomed through the speakers.
Today is a historic day, a new day for Lagos. The Okuro family and the Core family joining our empires, our visions, our legacies. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. David and Jessica Cole stood, waving, soaking in the attention. And now, to celebrate this wonderful partnership, this union of two great families, a video presentation of the Cole family's long and wonderful history of integrity, charity, and Christian values. The lights began to dim. People settled into their seats, expecting a corporate video full of smiling faces and inspiring music. David and Jessica Cole smiled their practiced smiles, raising their glasses to the crowd. Jessica checked her phone one more time, making sure she was getting all of this on her Instagram story. The screens lit up. But it wasn't the corporate video with its soft focus and piano music. It was a black and white image, grainy, time-stamped. The logo for St. Luke's Private Hospital in the corner. A date stamp appeared in glowing red numbers. October 12, 2009, 1947-23. The ballroom went quiet. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. "What is this?" someone whispered. Jessica Cole's smile froze on her face. Her hand, holding a champagne glass, began to tremble. "What is this?" she whispered to David, her voice sharp with sudden fear. The video started playing. Grainy CCTV footage. A woman, heavily pregnant, her clothes torn and wet at an estate gate. She was on her knees, screaming, her face twisted in agony. The timestamp ticked forward. The image quality was poor, but the suffering was crystal clear. A voice, tinny from the intercom, but amplified now by the ballroom's state-of-the-art sound system, boomed out. Jessica's voice, younger but unmistakable. "Is she mad? Is this woman insane? Don't let her in. She will stain my floors. She's bringing shame to this estate." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Jesus Christ!" someone said loudly. Jessica stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "What is this? Turn it off! Turn it off right now! Security! Security!" Security guards moved toward the tech booth, but Femi had locked the door from the inside. By the time they broke it down, it would be too late. "I can't," Femi's voice came through the speakers, calm and steady. "It's on automatic. It's just getting to the best part. The part where we hear exactly what kind of person you really are." The footage stopped abruptly. A black screen. Silence. And then audio. Crystal clear audio. Cleaned up and enhanced by Femi's skills. A phone ringing. Then Nurse Becky. "St. Luke's Hospital, how may I help you?" Then Jessica's voice. "This is Mrs. Jessica Cole. I hear you have someone there claiming to work for me."
Yes, ma, she's here. She's asking for you. She just had a baby, ma. She's bleeding. I told you people already. She is not my responsibility. We are not paying for her. In fact, she stole from me. She took my gold watch. Don't let her leave. I'm calling the police. The ballroom was dead silent. You could hear people breathing. Someone's phone clattered to the floor. Then, a different call. Miriam's voice, weak and desperate. "Madam, please, please, my baby, he's sick. He's not breathing well." Jessica's voice, cold and sharp. "That's your problem, not mine. Did I tell you to get pregnant? Please, madam, don't do this." And then the line that would end everything. The line that would be played on every news station, shared on every social media platform, turned into memes and hashtags and a symbol of everything wrong with wealth and privilege in Nigeria. Listen to me, and listen well. The poor die every day, every single day. You are not special. Your baby is not special. The audio file ended. The screens went black. The lights came up harsh and unforgiving. Silence, complete absolute silence. Then, someone started clapping. Slow, deliberate claps. Then another person. Then another. But it wasn't applause. It was something else. Something darker. The sound of judgment. Jessica Cole was clawing at her throat, her face a mask of terror and rage. Her perfect makeup was running now, tears cutting through the foundation. "It's a lie. It's all lies. That's not me. That's not my voice."
But everyone knew, everyone could hear. It was unmistakably her voice, her accent, her intonation. The crowd had turned, the atmosphere in the room had shifted completely, from celebration to something ugly and dark. The phones were out now, hundreds of them, but they weren't recording the screens anymore. They were all pointed at Jessica. Every single camera in the room was focused on her face, her terror, her collapse, her public destruction. They were recording her the same way the crowd in the hospital had recorded Miriam. But this wasn't pity. This was disgust. This was justice. The flash from the cameras was blinding, creating a strobe effect that made the scene feel surreal, nightmarish. Charles Okoro was shaking, his face dark with fury. He looked from the coals to the horrified crowd to the tech booth where his daughter stood visible now, calm and watchful. Their eyes met across the ballroom. He saw something in her face, something ancient and determined, and in that moment he understood. He didn't know how or why, but he understood that his daughter had done this, and that she had done it for a reason. Charles Okoro, a man who had built his empire on an image of integrity and strength, walked slowly to the podium. His footsteps echoed in the silent room. His face was thunder, barely controlled rage. There has been, his voice shook slightly, a terrible mistake. The crowd held its breath. The Okoro family, he said, and his voice grew stronger, harder, will not be partnering with murderers. The room erupted. Gasps, shouts, the sound of 300 conversations starting at once. Security! Charles roared, his voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. Get Mr. and Mrs. Cole out of my event, now, out of my sight. As the security guards moved in, grabbing their arms, Jessica started screaming. Really screaming. Not the controlled society woman anymore, but something primal and terrified. No, you can't do this. Do you know who we are? Do you know what we'll do to you? The flashes from the phones were blinding now, a continuous strobe of light. Everyone was recording. Everyone was posting. Instagram stories, Twitter threads, TikToks. The video was being uploaded in real time to dozens of platforms. Jessica's heel, her expensive, custom-made heel, snapped as the guards pulled her towards the exit. She stumbled, her perfect gown tearing at the seam, the sound of ripping fabric loud in the room. A mirror of Miriam's torn shoes, stripped away in a moment of humiliation.
No, she screamed, being dragged past the crowd that parted for her like she was contaminated. You'll all regret this. She was nobody. Nobody. I did nothing wrong. You let her die. Someone shouted from the crowd. Murderer! Another voice called. The poor die every day. A woman's voice, dripping with disgust. How could you say that? David was silent, his face gray, already calculating, already thinking about lawyers and damage control and escape routes. Before Jessica even reached the lobby, before the hotel doors closed behind her, the video was everywhere. Linda Ikeji's blog. Breaking. Billionaire Jessica Cole caught on tape. The poor die every day. Bella Naija. Shocking. Audio reveals Lagos socialites' callous response to dying maid. Twitter was exploding. The hashtag "The Poor Die Every Day" was trending #1 worldwide, surpassing everything else. #1 in Nigeria, #1 in the UK, #1 in the US. The modern technology she loved, the phones she posed with, the social media she used to build her image, had become the hand of her karma. The very tools she'd used to display her wealth were now the instruments of her destruction. In the chaos, as people shouted and argued and posted and shared, Sophia Okoro walked calmly out of the tech booth. Femi followed her, removing his disguise, his face pale but determined. She found Nurse Funke, who she had invited and seated in the back of the ballroom. Funke had watched everything, tears streaming down her face the entire time. They didn't hug, they just looked at each other. Two women connected by a death, by a memory, by justice finally served. It's over, Sophia whispered. No, Funke replied, her voice choked with emotion.
It's just beginning. The world knows now. Thank you. Thank you, Miriam. Sophia nodded once, then walked out of the ballroom into the Lagos night. Behind her, the chaos continued, but she felt lighter than she had in years, in 2 lifetimes. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. The coal stock crashed to zero by morning, every single share. Investors pulled out overnight, terrified of the association. Every contract was cancelled. Their business partners released statements distancing themselves, condemning them in the strongest possible terms. They were blacklisted by the entire city, then the entire country. No bank would work with them. No business would meet with them. Their friends deleted their numbers. The WhatsApp groups they had been in went silent whenever they posted. Then eventually they were removed without comment. The public disgrace was total and absolute. They went from the top of Lagos society to pariahs in less than 24 hours. St. Luke's Hospital, facing a massive public relations crisis and potential lawsuits, fired the matron and 3 other administrators. They issued a public apology, pledging to change their policies, to treat all patients with dignity regardless of ability to pay. Nurse Funke was offered her job back with 16 years of back pay, over 40 million naira. She declined, graciously but firmly. I can't work in a place with those memories, she told them. Instead, she took a job as director of operations for Sophia's new project, the one that would become her life's work. Charles Okoro, humbled by his daughter's revelation, sat with her in his study a week after the gala. His face had aged years in days. Why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly. If you had evidence of their crimes, you could have come to me. Sophia looked at her father with eyes that were simultaneously 16 and 40. It wasn't your story to tell, Daddy. It was hers, Miriam's, and I had to finish it the right way. Not in court, where they could use their money and connections to make it disappear. Not privately, where they could pay people off. Publicly, where everyone could see, where they could feel what she felt. Charles nodded slowly. Who was she, Miriam? Sophia said simply, someone who deserved better. Someone who deserved to be seen. Years passed, 5 of them. Sophia Okoro, now 21, didn't just inherit her father's business. She transformed it completely, redirecting its focus, its values, its purpose. The first major project she unveiled wasn't a luxury tower or an exclusive estate. It was something different, something revolutionary for Lagos.
The presentation room was packed with journalists, investors, and activists. The first slide of our PowerPoint wasn't a building or a profit projection. It was a photograph. A young woman's face, smiling despite tired eyes. A face most people had never seen but everyone now knew. The name beneath it, Miriam Okafor, 1985, 2009. This is the Miriam Foundation, Sophia began, her voice steady and strong. Named after a woman who died because she was invisible, because her life was considered worthless, because the systems that should have protected her instead protected the wealthy. The next slide showed architectural plans, a beautiful modern building. This is a state-of-the-art maternal health clinic being built in Oshodi. Free prenatal care, free delivery, free postnatal care for anyone who walks through those doors. No questions asked, no payment required, no judgment given. Applause started, but she raised her hand. That's not all. The foundation also provides free legal aid for domestic staff. Help them understand their rights, help them fight when they are abused, help them get justice. Another slide. More plans. We're building shelters for struggling single mothers, safe places where they can stay with their children, where they can get job training, education, childcare, where they can rebuild their lives with dignity. The final slide was simple, just words. A promise kept. The room erupted in applause, real applause this time, not the polite society clapping of the gala, but something genuine. After the presentation, a young journalist approached Sophia. Why Miriam? Why her name specifically? Sophia smiled, a secret in her eyes. Because she deserves to be remembered. Because her name should mean something other than suffering. Because she was someone's daughter, someone's wife, someone's friend,
She mattered. As for Jessica Cole, no one knew for sure what happened to her. There were rumors, whispers, stories that grew in the telling. Some said she and David fled to Cotonou, their names changed, their faces altered, their assets hidden in offshore accounts they'd set up years ago, paranoid wealthy people always preparing for disaster. Others said she was still in Lagos but unrecognizable, that she lost everything, that she sold cheap Ankara fabric in Balogun market, haggling over 50 naira, her hands rough now, her face lined with the stress that came from actual poverty, that sometimes when she looked at the wealthy women who came through, she'd recognize them, her former friends, who'd walk right past her without seeing her, the way she'd once walked past Miriam. Sophia didn't follow her story. She didn't need to. That chapter was closed. The debt was paid. The scales were balanced. Justice didn't need revenge. It just needed light. As Sophia stood on the balcony of the new Miriam Foundation Clinic on opening day, watching mothers walk through the doors, safe and welcomed and seen, she finally understood. The pain had purpose. Every moment of Miriam's suffering, every humiliation, every prayer that seemed to go unanswered, it had all led here, to this moment, to this change. God hadn't forgotten Miriam. He was just positioning Sophia, giving her the tools and the platform and the power to make Miriam's death mean something. Wickedness, no matter how well dressed in Lanre da Silva, no matter how much it smiled for Instagram, no matter how many Bible verses it quoted on Sunday, will always be exposed. You cannot build a good life on someone else's pain. The foundation will always crack. They buried Miriam's body in an unmarked grave, but they couldn't bury the truth. Truth has a way of rising, of breaking through concrete, of finding the light. In modern Lagos, in 2025, justice doesn't always come from the sky with thunder and lightning. Sometimes it comes from a grainy CCTV file, an old audio log, and a child who remembers. Sometimes it comes from technology, the same technology used to display wealth and status becoming the instrument of accountability. They mocked Miriam's torn shoes, but her memory walked into a billionaire's mansion, was born into privilege and power, and inherited the ability to move mountains. They thought her death was the end. They thought poverty made her powerless. They thought she was nobody. They were wrong. Her death was just the beginning. This story is real in the ways that matter. It is the story of every person who has been stepped on, ignored, humiliated, and told they are nobody. Every domestic worker who's been abused, every poor person who has died because they couldn't pay for healthcare, every vulnerable person who's been dismissed by the wealthy and powerful. If you are suffering right now, if you feel invisible, if your prayers seem to bounce back unanswered, hear this. Your prayer is not bouncing back. Your truth is not forgotten. It's just waiting. It's being recorded. It's building.
As the waves receded, leaving the shore polished smooth, remember the old adage, the river cuts through the rock not because of its power, but because of its persistence. May the lessons you've absorbed today be the steady flow that shapes the landscape of your own life, moving you not with haste, but with relentless, thoughtful purpose towards your truest self. If this journey through ideas has stirred your mind or touched your heart, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hitting that like button and sharing this story with a friend is the simplest way to add one more fascinating topic to your next conversation. Let's keep this discussion going.